and I'm a painter, a poet, an illustrator and a musician. You name it, I like to have a go at it. This is my little studio space. As you can see, it's not a particularly big space, it's just somewhere where I can put all my things, work in peace, and it's a space that's just for me. So if you can find a little corner that's just for you, it makes a real difference to how you work. I like it here because I have access to natural light. I can see my garden, I can hear my wind chimes, and as you can see there are a few items of mine. Here's a little chair that I upcycled. Someone was going to throw it away or burn it. It's a little nursing chair and I sanded it down and repainted it and gave it a new lease of life. And next door to it is a coffee table, which again was given to me by somebody else. And also the dogs can come and sit with me if they like as well. So this is my little workspace where I like to create my own little pieces of art. As an artist and a maker, I'm really interested in the importance of recycling, reclaiming and using found objects in my work. I live in this cottage here and most of it we built using reclaimed and recycled materials. Even this fence is recycled. The planters we've made are recycled, and also a lot of my sculptures. This is my little sculpture garden, as I like to call it, and I made this sculpture to remind me of Dunstan Staithes, which is a wonderful northeast landmark, and I loved the wooden structure and the reflections and the simplicity of its lines, so I recreated it using these wooden blocks, and when the sun passes through it, it acts as a wonderful sundial almost, with the shadows changing throughout the day. I also added all of these objects that you see here, which I've found in fields, in rivers, or some of them were even left behind here when we first bought this property. And I feel that it's history, it's a kind of history, a social history, a people's history. And I felt that it complemented the idea of the Staithes, which also involves all those themes I just mentioned. I also like to include natural objects like stones and pebbles, as you can see here. And also anything that I find, like bones or something somebody gives me, something that deserves a second chance, can be added to what I call my wishing tree, which moves with the wind and changes with the weather. Sometimes when I start a piece of work, I sometimes get a little bit mixed up with all my materials and I think, well, I don't need all these colours. Where are the ones that I need for this particular project? If only there was something I could use to help me sort these pencils out. What's this? Wow, this is really good. It's a holder for pencils and pens and brushes, and now I can choose the colours I need for what I'm doing at this particular time, and I can put the rest away. I wonder, how would you make such a thing? I don't always know straight away exactly what I'm going to make. Sometimes it depends on the materials that are available to me at the time. For example, my handy pen and brush holder. I didn't know I was going to make this a short time ago. But we were given a couple of years ago somebody's birch tree that had been cut down because it was falling down. And we stored it, and over the years it seasoned, and then we decided we'd cut it up for our wood store here. But we discovered that it was spalted. It was spalted birch, which was absolutely amazing. Spalting is when a fungus gets into the wood and creates these absolutely stunning patterns. And I just thought, these are way too beautiful to burn. Let's think of what we can do with them. Obviously, it doesn't instantly come as smooth as this. You do have to do a little bit of work on it first. Because we didn't realise we were going to keep these as items we'd use for crafts and making, they were cut with a chainsaw, which has left quite deep marks on the wood. So we've got splinters and roughness. It's not very tactile at the moment. So what we need to do is smooth it down. I'm going to put it in my little workstation here. As you can see, it's not a fancy place. Not everybody has access to wonderful workshops and great equipment, but it's amazing what you can use and get by with. Now, women especially, do not be afraid of using tools and do not think you can't use them. You can. It's just a matter of practice and gaining confidence. Now, the first thing I'm going to do, because it's very, very rough, sandpaper initially won't be strong enough, I'm going to use a woodworker's rasp. Be careful, it is very, very rough. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to start. You don't have to go mad, just nice and gently at first until you're gaining confidence and you work out if what you're doing is right. I'm just going to sand and rasp away until the marks have disappeared from the chainsaw. By the way, do not use a chainsaw unless you are qualified to do so and you have all the necessary safety equipment. And as you can see, it's starting to smooth out. Now, I'm not going to make you watch 15 minutes of me rasping a piece of wood. I'm going to pretend I'm moving on to the next stage, which is sanding. And for this, I'm going to use sandpaper and a sanding block. Sanding blocks, you can easily get them from anywhere, and you simply attach your sandpaper. If you don't have a sanding block, and I've often done this myself, you can wrap a piece of sandpaper around a scrap of wood and it does exactly the same job. And all I'm going to do is begin to sand. A top tip when you're doing anything with wood is to follow the grain of the wood. Do not work against it, work with the grain. And you'll find that it is very, very, very therapeutic to do. Working with wood anyway, as it reveals itself, it's very meditative. It's a very nice thing to do. You feel like you have a relationship with the wood. And once you start to learn to work with wood, you can make anything. For example, this planter is made from a reclaimed pallet, which we cut down and painted. And as you can see, I'm growing peas in it. Delicious. Would you like one? And once you've finished sanding, in true Blue Peter style, you'll have an item that looks like this. And the next stage we have to do is drill holes. Now it's all beautifully sanded and smooth. There are no sharp edges and it's wonderfully tactile, and you can really see the beautiful spalted patterns in the wood. The next thing we have to do is drill the holes. I've brought this just to help me measure how deep I want the holes to be. And I think, that looks about right. But how am I going to drill the holes? What do I need? I need a drill. No need to be frightened of power tools. Use them safely, use them sensibly. Get used to them. Oh, it does that, that's fine. It doesn't do anything worse. Keep your finger off the button at all times, unless you're actually drilling a hole. You'll notice I've added a piece of tape to this flat drill bit, and that has set the level for my holes, so each time I don't have to guess the depth. If you've never drilled a hole before, scrap piece of wood, practice. If you like, you can put pencil marks on. I'm just going to do it by eye, because I'm like that. Pop the drill on. Make sure it's as straight as you can manage. And drill! Sometimes you have to back the drill out because it gets full of sawdust. Just clear it out and carry on. I've now drilled to the level of my marker and I have a hole. There we go. All the holes are drilled and it works perfectly. For this final stage, we've moved into a covered area, which is lucky because actually it's July in the northeast, it's summer and it's raining. We still have ventilation because it's really important when you're using any kinds of varnishes or sprays that you do it in a well ventilated area for safety reasons. You don't have to varnish or colour or paint your item, it's entirely up to personal preference. I like to do it because, as you can see, it really brings out the colours of the grain and the spalting and any patterns in your wood. For this next stage, I'm going to need a paintbrush. Oh, how handy that I have this holder right here for my project. And I'm going to need a screwdriver. And I'm going to need a pot of varnish. The reason I need a screwdriver is because it's usually necessary to pop the lid with one, that's all. All I'm going to do is pick up a tiny amount of varnish on my brush. The less you put on at first, the least mistakes you can make. And I'm just going to paint in the same direction as the grain, and as you can see, it makes a beautiful addition to the colour, and in the end you will end up, when it's dry, with something like this. I hope I've given you some inspiration. Happy recycling, happy crafting.